And we are live, yay! And talking about Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And I have all kinds of reflection in my glasses.
I'll put discussion questions in the chat there.
Oh, cool. You know what's really inconvenient is this is like I've got my other computer right here. I'm gonna type it in over here.
Okay.
So thoughts while I'm doing this?
So I reread it this time, and I read it on audiobook, based
You
on, I
read
think
it
it was
on
your
audiobook?
suggestion, last time I listened to it, whatever you want to call it. Um, I think that was your suggestion to do it on audiobook.
It was.
And that was much, much better this time than the first time I read it. Yeah, it was just, I mean, it's still like, there's still long passages that are super boring, but I felt like I paid attention a lot more and got into the characters more with the voices, and yeah, it was good.
I enjoyed it too. Actually, I did not. Somehow I managed to get through an entire degree in English literature and not read Frankenstein. Um, I went back and forth between the Audible, not Audible. It was I got the CDs from the library, and then you can get it for free everywhere. I've got a subscription to Oyster, so I was reading it on Oyster.
Okay.
And you know what, the audiobook was so much more engaging.
Yes.
So much more engaging.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I was like in the car on the way to work, I would read along because I wasn't driving. But I would read along.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can get into it this way. This is cool. This will work. But to just read it, nah, homie, don't play that. And it's not even like, and I've enjoyed classic literature before, but sometimes I'm like, God, will you just stop talking and get to the point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like doing classics as audiobooks, especially if they have good readers, because they're just, yeah, you need that inflection when there's giant pages of text.
And no dialogue.
Right.
No flipping dialogue. There's nothing to break that up. Like when it got to the point where the voice actor changed, and I was like, hold on, wait a minute. And so I went and I looked at it. And I was like, oh, so this entire bit is in quotation marks. Okay, and it's been like this for like 4 chapters. Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking at it, I was like, I feel like I'm reading Walden again. And I hated that one. But I was like, 16. So
Yeah.
what do you know when you're 16? But no, you know what? And the other bit that really got me was, and I've been telling everybody that's been reading these, everything that I knew about the story happened in the first 25 minutes, or first 25%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's in one of the bottom drawers.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. What is she doing with the rolling pin? Sorry.
So what parts of the story did you know already?
Well, I knew about the illusion. So you see Frankenstein, and you know that
Hey, we got one. Hi.
Oh, awesome! Hi, you came.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good.
Your lighting's a little bit bad. I'm gonna.
Yeah, can't really see your face.
Hi, your lighting sucks.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jessica. Oh, that's better.
There you go. All right, and I'm Eli. On the thing, I show up as Laura. So I'm the one who prodded you into coming.
So we're talking about first impressions. Had you read it before? What did you know about it before you read it? You're welcome to jump in.
I'll be right back.
Okay, be right back.
Okay.
she says, and because I posted a comment on their thing, because I asked her if she was coming, and she said their classes got in the way, so she didn't have a chance to read it. I told her to come anyway, because just ingratiate her to the process.
Okay, got it.
So because everybody knows something about Frankenstein, but so I knew about the illusion, the somebody creates something that ultimately destroys them.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and then all of this stuff in the you see in like TV, like the bolts coming out the side,
Right?
Was totally off base.
Yeah.
Although here's the question that I had: because I thought, given all the things that I had seen, that he was like stealing pieces from graveyards and putting the thing together.
Yeah,
and
he did.
I didn't. Oh, he did. Okay, so I didn't. I think I missed that. Then I must have fallen asleep. But like, why couldn't he have picked somebody better looking then? We created the face.
He took pieces of dead bodies, but he made it like he strung everything together so it was like on a giant scale, so it was easier to work with. So like the nerves were bigger than normal. So he kind of patched everything together. So it wasn't like a face. It was like pieces of a face to make a bigger than normal face, and that's why it looked scary.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that piece.
I don't know if I got that from the book or if I just caught that because I watched the Crash Course episode on Frankenstein.
Okay, you know what? I don't think I knew there was a Crash Course episode on Frankenstein. I knew that Pemberley Digital was doing Frankenstein MD.
Yeah.
And I've seen like 3 or 4 of those. And they amused me.
So I watched like the first few episodes when they first came out, and then I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this. So on Halloween, like I had just recently finished the book again, and the finale came out that day, so I binge watched the entire, 30 however many episodes they had. And it was actually really well done. They did a nice job of kind of capturing the spirit of the book, but also making allusions to like the classic Frankenstein movies and like Young Frankenstein, and they had kind of these shout outs to those sorts of things. So that was fun. I thought they did a good job of it.
Cool. Well, Young Frankenstein is on our list of movies to watch like here soon. Actually, 'cause I've never seen it.
Okay, yeah, it's great.
Well, I mean, it's Mel Brooks, so it's got to be good.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that we actually talked about that this morning.
Yeah, I think people were a lot of people were really shocked at the finale of Frankenstein MD because all the other Pemberley Digital shows they've done so far have had like happy endings with romances, and this was like everybody dies. And
well, because everybody died.
Frankenstein is alone and depressed. Like, yeah, that's how the book goes. That's the point.
Wow. Okay. I'm spoilers. I'm still gonna watch it though. Because I think it's interesting how stories become such huge parts of our like culture. So you've got Greek mythology that's everywhere. You've got Romeo and Juliet that's everywhere.
Yeah.
So you've also got this Frankenstein story that has morphed. I put my glasses back on.
That's okay.
Well, yeah, but I'm sitting here like looking at the reflection. So you've got this story that is so important to our culture just because it has morphed so many times and everybody knows about it, even if it's the bolts on the side of the neck or whatever.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I didn't expect based on what I already knew or thought I knew about the story was I didn't expect the monster to be quite as articulate as he was.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's kind of morphed in the culture based on, I think, the movies and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's very it gives an entirely different impression of what we're supposed to take away from his character.
Yeah, and I think part of what was interesting was how so he sits Frankenstein down and says, "You're gonna listen to this story," and then he like takes him through the entire process of like observation of this family and language learning and his thought processes. And I'm like, okay, I totally wouldn't like screw this dude over at the because I know how he got to be the way he is and why he ended up killing the kid.
Right.
So yeah, no, let's just create the woman and be done with it. Because he sounds like the kind of being that will like hold true to his word.
Yeah. I agree. Like I kind of thought he should have created the mate for him. But then I felt like Frankenstein's reflections on why he didn't want to ultimately create the female were fair. Like, he's like, I don't know if this new creature is going to have the same temperament as the other one. She might not even like him. She might, whatever, so I kind of get that. Like, it's a little bit simplistic to say, okay, you create a female version and they're automatically going to love each other and both be happy with going off into the desert and,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't know.
It brings up then questions of nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, so the monster is all like is fairly calm in temperament until he learns about the evils of man, and then he adopts those kinds of feelings and actions and whatever. So like I can't help but wonder if he hadn't been treated badly, and he hadn't started reading Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost of all of the things. Paradise Lost. The Divine Comedy. But like if the information had been presented to him differently, how would his temperament development have been different?
Yeah.
Which is but then it wouldn't have made for quite interesting a story.
Right. Well, I think that one of the central questions we're supposed to get from this book is like.
Okay.
So make sure you keep an eye.
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay.
Sorry, our landlady's coming by later, so I have to be able to hear.
Ah, okay, got it. I think one of the central questions of this book is like, who is the villain?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Frankenstein because he refuses to cooperate and basically like spurns the monster the second he creates him, or is it the monster because he makes all these demands and then murders people when he doesn't get what he wants, or is it like society at large because they refuse to accept somebody who looks different, and therefore that kind of sets off the chain of events of the murders and the if they had accepted the monster, he wouldn't have had the need for a mate because he would have been able to be accepted into society. So yeah, I think it's really interesting.
It is. It was the entire story was a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because I went in thinking, okay, this is one of those. It's another one of those classic stories that I avoided when I was in school because it was like, oh, this sucks to read Mary Shelley, which is how people feel in high school.
Yeah.
I don't think I read anything that I liked in high school. But when you put it in such a way that okay, this character could be a villain, this character could be a villain, society as a whole could be a villain. It's more complex than just man versus society, which is the way conflict is taught in schools. Like you have man versus nature and man versus man, and I think the way we teach conflict, and now I'm going to my English teacher place for a second. The way we teach conflict significantly oversimplifies the way conflict actually exists in the world, and the way Frankenstein is told complicates our notions of conflict, our notions of literary conflict.
Right. Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it just raises all of these ethical questions about, like, should Frankenstein have tried to create life in the first place? And, like, was that overstepping the bounds of science? Or was that okay, but then he shouldn't have run away from him? Was the monster justified in taking revenge on Frankenstein, or should he just have accepted his fate and been a, like, lonely reject of society? Like, it's really, I don't know. There's all sorts of questions. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that it's great because there's not one answer. It's one of those. It's one of the, and I wish I'd read this in my studies now, because it would have been made for great class discussion. But because it sets itself up so well for good debate.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've got my teacher wheels turning now. So I wish I taught English instead of reading, because oh god, that'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. Another of the debates, which was one of the discussions on Crash Course, is this, so this is considered like a classic romantic novel, capital R romantic,
mm-hmm.
but is it really in line with the ideals of romanticism, or is it anti-romantic? Like, because the romantics are all about, like passion and emotion and feeling and all these things, and it's is the book saying that should be our guide, as opposed to, I guess, knowledge and science, which gets him in trouble in the first place? Or is it really the passion and emotion that cause the problems, that cause him to freak out and run away, that cause the disgust and all the things that make the monster, rejected? And
mm-hmm.
and so there's no real clear, like, is this pro-emotion, anti-emotion, pro-science?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm inclined to say, like, because they're both of the primary characters are very, very emotional beings, and I think that is how they end up getting into trouble. Okay, so
Frankenstein and the monster, or are you talking about Walton?
I'm talking about Frankenstein and the monster.
Okay.
So Frankenstein has all this passion for the science that leads him to create the monster, and then the monster has all of this passion about, partly about finding community, and also partly about, just like he talks about the love he has for this family that he's been all stalkery and watching the entire time. But I mean, lots of emotion goes into the decisions that are made. But then on the other side of that, it's like, okay, so we've got all of this emotion, we've got no grounding.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of run away with their emotions, and it's everything is dictated by these feelings that they're having, as opposed to, okay, where's the line in which I need to start thinking with my reason brain,
right,
instead of with my emotion brain.
Yeah, and that seems to be the issue with Frankenstein when he's creating the monster, is that he's so, he's such monomaniac in creating this, and he shuns everybody else. He shuns any sort of input or anything, and he's locked away and, becomes emaciated and all of this stuff, and it's like that's the extreme that becomes the problem.
So maybe it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I
think that's where I'm landing right now.
Yeah, well, but the question is, like, is it a cautionary tale, like, against, against science and, like, the pursuit of knowledge, or just is there a line somewhere where that becomes, if it becomes an obsession, and that's where the problem is, or if it becomes, I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's like everything in moderation.
Right.
I think, like, so all of the emotion and passion, there's got to be a line for that. Just like there's got to be a line for the medical ethics stuff.
Right.
Have you read any of Neil Shusterman's Unwind Dystology?
Mm.
Okay, so this is one of those places where Frankenstein has come into modern YA novels. It's a dystopian. The idea behind unwinding is that you can take 100% of one person and give it to a bunch of other people, and that original person will be alive in a divided state.
Okay.
It gets to the point where they create a kid, like from unwound pieces. So they get all of these pieces of the best hands and the best brain pieces and everything, and they create. And there was I think it was in the second book, but there's that allusion to Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And what was nice about that character, is similar to Frankenstein's monster, was the intelligence.
Yes.
So when the brain, like the brain, as it in a rewind is what they're calling them, it misfires. It has a hard time making the connections between the existing knowledge and of the different brain pieces. So it takes a little while for it to fuse together.
Yeah.
But the process by which the character is learning to be in his body is very similar to the Frankenstein's monster's evolution there, which I thought was really, really interesting. The more I read Frankenstein, now I have to go back to Unwind and read that again, so I can see how much closer it is even.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that Frankenstein's monster in the original book is so thoughtful and intelligent and articulate, because I think that's actually more frightening, at least for Frankenstein, because he's not just this like brute monster who's, you know, intent on killing anything in its path, where it's basically like taking down an animal, you know, just like a really large one. But no, he's really smart, and he's intent on revenge in a very specific way, and like targeting Frankenstein's friends and family and figuring out how to like hide and surprise them, and like that's way more creepy and frightening than just like some big monster going and running around.
Right? And it was great, in Unwind it's the same way. So Cam is trying to take down the company that created him, because he got sold to the military. There's complications, and it's so it's awesome. But complications with how he was created, and then ownership. Does the company that created him own him? Does he own himself?
Yeah. Is
he a product of the military and all of the other rewinds they've created, because he's a prototype? Are they also the property of the army and not their own people? Just like it's like, okay, so you've got Frankenstein's monster, who I think is not any less of a monster than Frankenstein. If we're labeling things monster,
yeah,
you know, I think he was made into it, and I've moved away from my original point, but I think he was made into a monster as opposed to he was a monster from inception.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because if the thing is, like, I think Frankenstein as a character defines a monster or a demon or whatever just based on his like physical appearance. Like his monster, he's like, oh, this is a demon. It's so disgusting, and I'm gonna run away from it. And you know, like he imparts the idea of evil to the monster before he's even done anything because of how he looks, as opposed to his actual character, the monster's character, when he becomes this kind of revenge-seeking, murdering, evil person.
I'm looking at the questions. I haven't looked at them yet.
Okay.
Some of these are really... Okay, so I think this one is interesting. Number 5. What makes the creature a monster rather than a human being? Because a couple of times he refers to himself as his own species.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why he wants Frankenstein to create another like him, because there's nobody like him. I think it's the idea of like natural birth versus creation. You know, that's what makes him not human, because his process of birth was abnormal, I guess.
And we also just said though that his nature as a monster was created. My biggest problem with this, like, reasonable suspension of disbelief. Okay, how does his brain work? Like, why does it? And I think this is me pulling from Unwind.
Yeah.
But why isn't it that he has, or why doesn't he have any previous memories for, like, the brain or brains that have been used to, run the systems of his body?
Right.
I don't have a good answer for it. It was something.
Probably because in the early 1800s they didn't know how the brain worked. I mean,
that could be.
Yeah.
That could be. And then that's a context thing that makes it really interesting. And how it becomes even more interesting when we update the story, because we know how the brain works, that Cam, the character from Unwind, has all of these difficulties, and he has the memories of the people, and they're kind of memories. They're more like feelings of experience.
Okay.
But yeah, no, that's interesting. It's interesting how the adaptations of the stories change to fit what we know about science.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm really interested in now other adaptations of Frankenstein.
Yeah. Another angle of this I think is interesting, partly because of the time period it was written, is that I think that there's a lot of questions around abortion, and like he even calls himself an abortion, but like the idea of, if you create a being, do you have the right to destroy that being? Or is it then its own person at that point, once it's created, or only once it's reached consciousness? And I think that you can make all of those parallels with the creation of Frankenstein monster.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but it makes it even more interesting. And I keep going back to Unwind. But it makes it more interesting because the whole premise behind the Bill of Life, which is what started the whole line of story, was that everybody has the opportunity to live from conception to like the age of 13, when they can be retroactively aborted, essentially, and unwound, but they're still alive because they're in a divided state. So the idea, it's like I have to go back to Frankenstein and look at it after that, because I didn't it didn't register. Fascinating. It makes Unwind so much better. Like, I appreciate Neil Schusterman so much more. you know?
Yeah, now that you know what it's referring to, or
Yeah, well, and I've always been because okay, so I used to teach a class on teaching with young adult literature, and
Mhm.
one of the like units we would cover is pairing classic text with young adult text to help provide context.
Mhm.
And I've done that with a bunch of novels, but I hadn't done it with Unwind. Like I hadn't read because my students would read Unwind
Yeah.
in a different unit, but to put that in the canon unit, oh, that would be awesome. Have them read Frankenstein too.
Yeah.
The things that I'm going to do when I go back to teaching college.
Nice.
Yeah, this is awesome.
I love when you get your teacher face on. It's so great.
You know, it's like sometimes I want to show these to my kids. Like these are the kinds of these are the advantages of reading. Like you can have these conversations with people and make connections between all of these things, and it's kind of cool. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, well, this is one of the big reasons that I make an effort to read classic literature, even when a lot of times it's super boring, because so many other works, whether it's books or movies or whatever, make allusions to or pull source material from classic literature. And so
Mhm.
having an understanding of that just makes it such a richer experience to then see the contemporary works that are based on it.
Definitely. I haven't read as much classic literature since I taught high school. I taught high school for a little while.
Hmm.
And I was reading then because I mean, ninth grade, we do Romeo and Juliet, we do the Odyssey. Um, but yeah, and that's been like 6 or 7 years. I haven't read much. I read some Vonnegut, um, which was interesting. But that was interesting because I read Cat's Cradle, and just for allusions, the beginning of Cat's Cradle alludes to Moby Dick,
Yeah.
and the Bible in one sentence. um, so yeah, I totally agree with you on the illusion things. But I think that becomes part of the problem with like the readers who I teach is they're not familiar enough with just basic things. Like I hadn't read Frankenstein, but I knew what the illusion meant.
Yeah.
Um, they don't have that kind of knowledge, and then that doesn't spark their curiosity when they run into things,
Right.
which is unfortunate. I really wish it would, because then I could be more excited with them and they could laugh at me like you do. You're not the only one who does. A lot of people do, because I get really excited.
No, it's okay. I get excited about books and stuff too, and my husband.
Yeah. Um, but it's like being on the inside of an inside joke.
Right, exactly. Oh, and yeah, especially with like humor. I mean, even things like Saturday Night Live have
Mhm.
references to classic literature, and things that are just, if you know the story, like it's just so much funnier.
Hmm. Yeah, and well, thinking about the things that teenagers watch, um, besides reality TV, like The Simpsons. Oh my God, The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Or like I watched an episode of Will and Grace one day, and in 5 minutes, counted like 13 illusions. Half of them I didn't even get.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but and that's therein. I mean, to do educator talk for a minute, that's where the problem lies. Like, so I can watch 5 minutes of a show and get that there are 13 illusions, even though I don't know what they mean.
Mhm.
And so I think a problem becomes that we can't even not we, but some readers can't even identify when there is an illusion, even if they
Mm,
don't know what it means.
yeah.
And that's a big problem. I mean, I work with struggling readers, so that's a big problem.
Right.
So, but inside jokes, yay!
Yeah.
Maybe we should put some more classic text on the list.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what's on our list, but just things that are frequently alluded to. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
What else is
although
frequently alluded to?
some stuff is super boring, like Moby Dick is alluded to a
Yeah,
lot.
no, I
It's super
don't want
boring.
to read Moby Dick.
So I read that. I did it as an audiobook, but I did the unabridged version. It's so boring. Like, it's a good story. I think if I were recommending it to someone, I would recommend reading the abridged version, because if you cut out the chapters on whaling, which
Yeah.
there are many, then you actually have like a decent story. But if you have to sit through like an hour of a lecture on the history of whaling as told from like the 19th century, it's just like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I vowed not to read that after when I was doing my student teaching. One of the classes that I taught was AP Language or AP Literature and Composition, and when I came in, that's what they were reading. That was not what I had to teach, but that's what they were reading.
Yeah.
And I would listen to these discussions, and I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
I think it's
know
worth
where that's
reading
happening.
because I would imagine that all that stuff is cut out and it's just the
Yeah.
story. So
I'll have to check at the library.
yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about this before I gotta go? There are people stomping around on my roof.
No, I don't think there's anything particularly else that we need to discuss.
Okay. It's too bad. It's too bad that other people didn't get to participate in this one.
I know.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Not that they aren't fun, but you know, I nerded out in a different way.
Yeah.
So this month, I suppose, since it is November, is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which
Yep.
audiobook.
Nice.
Yeah, I picked it up from the library at the same time I picked up Frankenstein. I just haven't ripped it onto my computer yet. Oh, did I say that on the internet? Shoot. Well, I mean, I walk around with it on my shuffle. Who has a CD player anymore?
Oh yeah, totally. That's what I used to do when I used to get everything as audio CDs until I had got Overdrive at our library.
See, I live in a small town. Our library does not have Overdrive.
That sucks.
Yes. I have Audible, but I've just bought Croak for one of my students. So, because he read Hold Me Closer, Necromancer, and loved it. So I was like, oh yeah, let's do a Grim Reaper story now.
Continuing on the death theme.
You know what? He wanted a story that was funny and creepy at the same time. Like funny and scary, not creepy.
Yeah.
And those are harder to come by. So
Yeah.
Hold Me Closer, Necromancer did a good job at it. I think Croak does a pretty good job at it.
Okay.
And Croak reminds me of like Dead Like Me. So.
Okay. All books I have not read.
And
But
I
I have
have
heard of her.
Okay. Yeah. So that is, I guess, it for us this time. I
Okay.
will stop the broadcast. Woohoo!